The whole rainforest exhaled mist, its breath curling through moss-draped cedars and pooling in the peat bogs below. The air was heavy with the sour tang of decay, a wet, earthy scent that clung to the skin. Somewhere in the distance, an otter splashed, its ripples swallowed by the fog. Dr. Elena Voss knelt beside a cluster of sundews, their crimson-tipped tendrils glistening like tiny traps under her headlamp. She scribbled in her field journal, her gloved fingers brushing a leaf. Drosera rotundifolia, she murmured, sketching the plant's delicate spines. You're thriving out here, aren't you? The bog answered with silence, its surface a deceptive quilt of green, hiding sinkholes that could swallow a person whole. It was August 2018, and Elena was deep in Washington's Olympic Peninsula, a wilderness where time seemed to dissolve in the haze. At 34, she was a rising star in wetland ecology, her passion for carnivorous plants driving her to solitary surveys in the peninsula's treacherous bogs. Her colleagues at the university called her fearless, her brother, Marcus, called her reckless. She'd laughed off his warnings that morning, her hazel eyes bright with defiance. I know these bogs better than anyone, Mark, she'd said, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. I'll be back by dusk. Her radio crackled as she checked in with her team at the remote field station, promising to call again in 6 hours. Dusk came, and the radio stayed silent. At the field station, a corrugated shack perched on a rare patch of solid ground, Elena's research team grew restless. The clock ticked past 7 p.m., the sky bruising purple beyond the fogged windows. She's never late, said Tara, a grad student, her voice tight as she fiddled with the radio. Not Elena. The team leader, Dr. Paul Hensley, frowned, peering out at the darkening bog. Storms rolling in. She might have holed up somewhere dry. But his tone carried doubt. Elena was meticulous, her check-ins as reliable as the tides. Paul grabbed the radio and tried her frequency again. Voss, this is base. You there? Static hissed back, sharp and unyielding. By 8 p.m., the storm hit. Rain lashed the station, turning the bog into a churning maze of water and mud. Tara paced, her boots squeaking on the linoleum floor. We need to go look for her. Paul shook his head. Not in this. Visibility's down to 10 feet, and the ground's a death trap. We wait till morning. Tara's eyes flashed, but she said nothing. The team huddled around maps, marking Elena's last known coordinates, a dense bog 5 miles north, near a cluster of rare sundews she'd been studying. The area was notorious for its unstable peat and hidden streams, a place even seasoned rangers avoided after dark. Morning brought no relief. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but fog blanketed the peninsula, thick as wet cotton. Paul rallied a search team, 6 researchers and 2 local guides, equipped with GPS units and ropes to navigate the bog's hazards. They fanned out, shouting Elena's name into the mist. Their boots sank into the peat, each step a gamble against sinkholes. Beavers chattered in the distance, and once, a black bear's silhouette loomed before vanishing into the fog. After hours of slogging, they found nothing, no backpack, no footprints, no sign of Elena's bright red jacket. The bog seemed to mock them, its stillness swallowing their calls. Marcus Voss arrived at the field station that afternoon, his face haggard under a ranger's cap he hadn't worn in years. At 38, he was broad-shouldered, with the weathered hands of a man who'd spent a decade patrolling the peninsula's trails before leaving for an environmental consulting job in Seattle. He'd driven through the night after Paul's call, his truck rattling down logging roads to reach the bog. "Where is she?" he demanded, storming into the station. Paul handed him a map, pointing to the search grid. "We've covered 3 square miles. No trace. Her radio's dead, and the storm washed out any tracks." Marcus's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the map like it held a secret code. She wouldn't just vanish. Not Elena. He joined the search, moving with a ranger's instinct, his boots finding firmer paths where others faltered. He called her name until his voice cracked, the fog muffling his cries. At one point, he knelt beside a sundew patch, its sticky tendrils catching the drizzle. Elena had taught him about these plants years ago, her voice bright with wonder as she explained how they lured and digested insects. "They're survivors, Mark," she'd said, grinning. "Like us." Now, the sundews felt like a taunt, their silence louder than the storm. Days bled into weeks. The search expanded, bringing in helicopters and cadaver dogs, but the bog yielded nothing. The dogs whined, confused by the peat's chemical stew, which masked scents and preserved whatever it claimed. Rangers probed sinkholes with poles, divers braved murky channels, but the wilderness held its secrets tight. Marcus refused to leave, camping near the station, his maps growing into a sprawling archive of water flows, plant clusters, and hidden trails. He interviewed locals, loggers, poachers, even a reclusive botanist named Calvin Reed, but no one had seen Elena. By late September, the Washington State Police declared the case a likely accident. "Drowning," the report read. "Body unrecoverable due to bog conditions." Marcus didn't buy it. Elena knew the bogs too well, her every step calculated. She'd navigated worse storms, mapped sinkholes others missed. He sat in his tent one night, rain drumming on the canvas, and opened his sister's spare journal, left behind at the station. Her handwriting filled the pages, notes on sundews, sketches of their glistening traps, a scribbled quote, "The bog keeps what it takes." Marcus's hands shook as he read it, his grief hardening into resolve. He'd find her, or he'd map every inch of this damned wilderness trying. Across the state, in a cluttered office in Seattle, Detective Sam Harper tossed a file onto his desk, the name, Elena Voss, staring up from the label. At 48, Sam was a fixture in the cold case unit, his graying hair and sharp blue eyes marking a man who'd seen too many mysteries end in silence. His cocker spaniel, Sammy, lay curled at his feet, chestnut coat gleaming under the desk lamp. Sam scratched Sammy's ears, muttering, "Another one, buddy." A news clipping about Elena's disappearance lay on his desk, sent by a colleague who knew Sam's knack for cracking impossible cases. He hadn't taken it yet, his caseload was already a mountain, but something about Elena's story tugged at him. Maybe it was the bog, its eerie echo of the forest where his sister, Lily, vanished 20 years ago. Maybe it was the photo of Elena, her smile fierce and familiar, like Lily's before she was gone. Sam stood, stretching his lean frame, and grabbed his coat. "Come on, Sammy. Let's take a walk." The spaniel's ears perked, his soulful brown eyes locking onto Sam's. They stepped into the Seattle drizzle, Sammy's tail wagging like a metronome. Sam didn't know it yet, but Elena's case would pull him into the bogs, where he and Sammy would face a wilderness that hid more than bodies, it hid truths, etched in peat and fog, waiting for someone stubborn enough to find them. The bog stretched on, its mist curling like a living thing, indifferent to the searcher's shouts or Marcus's maps. Somewhere in its depths, a silver locket lay buried, its sundew flower glinting faintly, as if whispering Elena's name. The wilderness watched, patient and unyielding, guarding its secrets for 7 long years. The whole rainforest bog was a thief of time, its fog and peat erasing days as easily as footprints. By October 2018, the search for Dr. Elena Voss had dwindled to a handful of volunteers, their boots heavy with mud and disappointment. The Washington State Police had scaled back, their helicopters grounded, their divers pulled from the murky channels. The official report sat on a desk in Olympia, Dr. Elena Voss, 34, presumed drowned in a bog during a storm, August 2018. Body unrecoverable. The words were clinical, final, but to Marcus Voss, they were a betrayal. He stood in the field station, staring at the map pinned to the wall, its red X's marking searched areas, its blank spaces mocking him. "She's still out there," he muttered, his voice raw from weeks of shouting her name into the mist. The initial search had been chaos. The storm that hit the night Elena vanished turned the bog into a labyrinth of flooded trails and sinkholes. Rangers and volunteers waded through knee-deep muck, their poles probing for solid ground or something worse. The fog was relentless, cutting visibility to a few feet, wrapping the cedars in a shroud that swallowed sound. A ranger had nearly drowned when a peat bank collapsed, dragging him into a hidden stream. Cadaver dogs, brought in from Tacoma, circled aimlessly, their noses baffled by the bog's anaerobic stew, where scents decayed as slowly as bodies. Divers searched the deeper channels, their lights barely piercing the peat-stained water, but found only roots and silt. Marcus had been there for every step, his old ranger skills resurfacing like muscle memory. He navigated by instinct, reading the bog's subtle cues, moss patterns, water flows, the faint trails of otters or beavers. He found a broken sundew stem once, its red-tipped tendrils crushed, and his heart leapt, thinking it was Elena's. But it led nowhere, just another dead end in a wilderness that seemed to shift with every step. By the time the police called off the search, Marcus was alone, his tent a fixture near the field station, his map sprawling across folding tables. He marked sinkholes, charted water levels, and interviewed anyone who'd ever set foot in the bog, loggers, hikers, even a reclusive botanist named Calvin Reed, who'd shrugged and said he'd seen nothing. Marcus didn't trust Reed's curt answers, but he had no proof, only a gnawing certainty that Elena hadn't just slipped into a sinkhole. Years passed, the bog unchanging, its fog as thick in 2025 as it had been in 2018. Marcus moved to a cabin on the peninsula's edge, his consulting work reduced to a side hustle. His real job was the bog, mapping its hidden paths, noting every anomaly. His maps were a masterpiece of obsession, hand-drawn on rolls of butcher paper, annotated with notes like, sinkhole risk, north quadrant, or, sundew cluster, possible campsite. He'd walk the bog for hours, his boots caked in peat, searching for signs he'd missed, a scrap of Elena's red jacket, a glint of her silver locket. At night, he'd pore over her spare journal, its pages filled with sketches of carnivorous plants and cryptic notes, poachers spotted near West Channel, July 2018. The entry haunted him. Had Elena seen something she shouldn't have? Marcus's grief was a quiet thing, tempered by guilt. He'd been too busy with his new job in Seattle to join her survey that August. She'd teased him about it, her voice crackling over the phone, "You're getting soft, Mark. Come get your boots muddy." He hadn't gone, and now the bog was all he had left of her. He sat by his wood stove one night, a photo of Elena on the table, her hazel eyes bright, a sundew pinned to her jacket like a badge. "I'm not giving up," he told the photo, his voice breaking. The fire popped, and outside, the bog exhaled its endless mist. In Seattle, Detective Sam Harper leaned back in his chair, the cold case file on Elena Voss open on his desk. It was 2023, and Sam was drowning in cases, each one a ghost from someone's past. At 48, he was lean and weathered, his blue eyes sharp but tired, the lines on his face etched by 20 years of chasing answers. His cocker spaniel, Sammy, sprawled across the office floor, his chestnut coat catching the flicker of a neon sign outside. Sam tossed a tennis ball, and Sammy's ears perked, his tail thumping as he scrambled after it. "Good boy," Sam said, a faint smile breaking through. Talking to Sammy was his habit, a way to ground himself when the files piled too high. Sam's obsession with cold cases wasn't just professional. 20 years ago, his sister, Lily, had vanished during a camping trip in the Cascades. She was 19, fearless, with a laugh that could light up a room. They'd been hiking together when Sam stepped away to refill their canteens. When he returned, she was gone, no trace, no scream, just a half-eaten apple on the ground. The search had been exhaustive, but the forest, like the bog, kept its secrets. Sam became a detective because of Lily, driven to give others the closure he'd never found. Each case was a chance to rewrite that ending, though none ever did. He flipped through Elena's file, his fingers pausing on a photo of her in the bog, a sundew tucked behind her ear. Something about her reminded him of Lily, the same fierce spark, the same love for wild places. The report was thin: no body, no witnesses, just a backpack missing and a storm that erased all traces. Sam's gut told him it wasn't an accident. People like Elena, who knew their terrain, didn't just vanish. He glanced at Sammy, who tilted his head, brown eyes soulful. "What do you think, buddy? Worth a look?" Sammy whined, nudging the tennis ball closer. Sam chuckled. "All right, we'll keep it in mind." Flashback to 2021, Sam and Sammy worked a case in the Skagit Valley, a missing hiker found after 3 years. The break came when Sammy, trained to detect human remains and chemical traces, pawed at a patch of disturbed soil near a riverbank. His nose twitched, catching a faint whiff of decomposition beneath the mud. Sam followed, digging carefully until he uncovered a shoe, then a bone. The hiker's family wept when Sam delivered the news, their gratitude bittersweet. Sammy had sat at Sam's feet that night, his warmth a quiet comfort as Sam stared at Lily's old photo, wondering if he'd ever find her bones in a forest somewhere. Sammy was more than a pet, he was Sam's partner, his instincts sharper than any tech in the precinct. Trained to sniff out remains, chemicals, even rare plants, Sammy could pick up scents the bog tried to hide. His playful side, chasing frogs, wagging his tail at a squirrel, kept Sam grounded, a reminder that not every moment had to be heavy. But when Sammy worked, his focus was laser-like, his ears perked, his nose to the ground. Sam trusted him like he trusted no one else. By 2025, Elena's case was a footnote, buried under newer tragedies. Marcus still walked the bog, his maps now covering his cabin walls, a testament to 7 years of searching. He'd found oddities: a trapdoor in a peat bank, a patch of sundews too neatly arranged, but nothing tied to Elena. The locals whispered about the bog's curse, how it swallowed people whole. Marcus ignored them, his faith in Elena's survival fading but never breaking. She was out there, he told himself, her locket or journal waiting to be found. In Seattle, Sam kept Elena's file on his desk, a nagging presence. He didn't know Marcus yet, didn't know the bog's secrets, but he felt the pull. One night, as rain lashed his apartment windows, he opened the file again, Sammy curled at his feet. A news clipping mentioned Marcus's maps, his refusal to give up. Sam's eyes narrowed. "Sounds like someone we need to meet, Sammy." The spaniel's tail thumped, as if he knew the bog was calling them both. The wilderness waited, its fog curling over peat and sundews, hiding Elena's fate. Somewhere, a GPS device lay buried, its moss-covered surface etched with a desperate plea: "Trapped, DV." The bog didn't care. It kept what it took, patient for the day someone like Sam and Sammy would come looking. The fog clung to the whole rainforest like a shroud, its tendrils curling through the peat bogs of the Olympic Peninsula. In September 2025, a kayaker named Jenna Cole sliced her paddle through a narrow channel, the water black with peat, the air thick with the sour tang of decay. She was an amateur botanist, drawn to the bog's rare flora, her kayak loaded with a notebook and a camera. The channel was remote, barely mapped, its banks matted with sphagnum moss and dotted with sundews, their sticky traps glinting like tiny jewels. Jenna's eyes scanned the peat, searching for a rare pitcher plant, when something caught her attention, a glint of metal half buried in a crumbling bank. She eased her kayak closer, the hull scraping against roots. The object was small, rectangular, caked in green moss that seemed to pulse with the bog's heartbeat. Jenna reached out, her fingers brushing the cold surface, and tugged it free. It was a GPS device, waterlogged but intact, its casing scratched with a crude message: "Trapped, DV." The letters were uneven, etched with something sharp, like a knife or a rock. Jenna's breath caught, her mind racing to the stories she'd heard, tales of a missing ecologist, a woman swallowed by the bog years ago. She tucked the device into her dry bag, her hands trembling, and paddled back to the ranger station, the fog closing in behind her. Detective Sam Harper stood at the edge of the bog, his boots sinking into the peat, Sammy at his side. The call had come from the Washington State Police that morning, September 10, 2025, pulling Sam from his Seattle office to the peninsula. The GPS device, now in an evidence bag, sat on a folding table at the ranger station, its mossy crust flaking under fluorescent light. Sam's blue eyes narrowed as he studied the scratched message, "Trapped, EV." The initials matched Elena Voss, the ecologist who'd vanished 7 years ago. "Not an accident," he muttered, scratching Sammy's ears. The Cocker Spaniel's nose twitched, his chestnut coat damp from the mist, his brown eyes fixed on the device as if it held a scent he could chase. The station buzzed with activity, rangers, a forensic tech, and Jenna, who recounted her find with wide eyes. "It was just there, in the peat," she said, her voice shaky. "Like the bog was hiding it." Sam nodded, his weathered face calm but his mind racing. The bog's anaerobic conditions, low oxygen, high acidity, could preserve artifacts for years, even decades. A GPS device, sealed tight, could survive 7 years submerged. But the message, "trapped," suggested something darker than a drowning. Elena Voss had been fighting for her life. Sam knelt beside Sammy, holding the evidence bag close. "What do you think, buddy?" Sammy's tail wagged, his nose inching toward the bag. He whined, a low, urgent sound, his ears perked as he caught a faint scent, something floral, sharp, not peat or metal. Sam's brow furrowed. Sammy was trained to detect human remains, chemicals, even rare plants like sundews. That whine meant something worth following. "Good boy," Sam said, standing. He turned to the ranger, a grizzled man named Holt. "Where's the guy who's been mapping this place?" "Voss's brother?" Marcus Voss arrived an hour later, his truck rattling into the station's muddy lot. At 45, he was leaner than in 2018, his face etched with lines from 7 years of searching. His ranger's cap was gone, replaced by a worn baseball hat, but his eyes burned with the same intensity. He carried a roll of maps under his arm, their edges frayed from constant handling. Sam introduced himself, shaking Marcus's calloused hand. "Detective Sam Harper, Cold Case Unit. This is Sammy." The spaniel tilted his head, sizing Marcus up, then nudged his leg, tail wagging. Marcus managed a faint smile. "Heard about you. You find people when no one else can." Sam gestured to the GPS device. "Recognize this?" Marcus's breath hitched as he leaned closer, studying the scratched initials. "That's Elena's handwriting," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She carried a Garmin GPS, always clipped to her pack. He straightened, his jaw tight. "She didn't drown. Someone did this." Sam nodded, his gut agreeing. The message wasn't a casual note, it was a cry, carved in desperation. He handed Marcus a chair. "Tell me about her." Marcus unrolled his maps, spreading them across the table. They were a labyrinth of lines and notes, each inch of the bog annotated: unstable peat, west channel, sundew patch, possible camp. He traced a finger to the channel where Jenna found the device. "This area's deep in the bog, unmapped by most. Elena was studying sundews there, said they were being overharvested. She suspected poachers." His voice cracked. "I should have gone with her that day." Sam listened, his empathy tempered by focus. Marcus's guilt mirrored his own, Lily's disappearance still haunted his dreams, her laughter echoing in every case. "You've been mapping this for 7 years, Sam said, studying the maps. Anything stand out? Odd trails, camps, people?" Marcus hesitated, then pointed to a note: "Calvin Reed, botanist, seen near West Channel, July 2018. "He's a loner," Marcus said. "Knows the bog better than anyone. Elena mentioned him once, said he was cagey about his work." Sam and Sammy headed to the bog that afternoon, guided by Marcus's maps. The air was heavy, the fog curling like a living thing around Sammy's paws. The channel where Jenna found the GPS was a narrow ribbon of black water, its banks thick with moss and sundews. Sam knelt, the peat squelching under his knees, and scanned the area. The bog felt alive, its silence oppressive, broken only by the drip of water and Sammy's soft sniffing. The spaniel paced the bank, his nose low, then froze, ears perked, a low growl in his throat. Sam followed his gaze to a patch of disturbed peat, barely noticeable, where the moss seemed too neatly pressed. "Sammy, what have you got?" Sam murmured, crouching beside him. Sammy pawed at the spot, his nose twitching, catching that same floral scent from the GPS, sundew resin, faint but unmistakable. Sam marked the spot with a flag, his pulse quickening. The bog was talking, and Sammy was listening. He radioed the forensic tech, Lisa, a sharp-eyed woman who'd worked with him before. "Need you out here," he said. "Bring the pollen kit. Something's off." Lisa arrived with a portable lab, her equipment clattering in a backpack. She swabbed the GPS device and the disturbed peat, explaining as she worked. "Pollen's like a fingerprint, every bog has a unique mix. Sundews, especially, leave distinct grains. If this device was here long, it'll have the bog's signature." Sam nodded, impressed but impatient. "Can you tell where it's been?" Lisa smiled. "Give me a day. Peat isotopes, too, they'll narrow it to a specific patch." Sammy whined, nudging Sam's leg, as if urging him to keep moving. That night, Sam and Marcus sat in the ranger station, maps spread between them. Sammy curled at Sam's feet, his warmth a quiet anchor. Marcus shared a memory, his voice soft. "Elena used to drag me out here as kids. She'd point at sundews, say they were the bog's guardians, catching anything that didn't belong." He paused, his fingers tracing the locket he wore, a twin to Elena's. "She was fearless, Sam. If she wrote trapped, she was fighting something, or someone." Sam met his gaze, seeing his own pain reflected. "We'll find out what," he said. "Sammy's already got a lead." Outside, the bog whispered, its fog hiding the truth of Elena's fate. The GPS device, now in a locked evidence box, held its cryptic plea, "Trapped, EV." It was a scream from the past, and Sam knew he and Sammy were just beginning to answer it. The whole rainforest bog was a world of secrets, its peat and fog guarding evidence with a miser's grip. Detective Sam Harper stood at the edge of the channel where the GPS device had been found, the air heavy with the sour tang of decay. Sammy, his cocker spaniel, paced the bank, his chestnut coat flecked with mud, his nose twitching at the faint scent of sundew resin. It was September 12, 2025, and the discovery of the moss-covered GPS device, etched with "Trapped, EV," had shifted Elena Voss's case from a tragic accident to a criminal investigation. Sam's blue eyes scanned the bog, its mist curling like a living thing, hiding answers he was determined to find. The forensic tech, Lisa, called Sam that morning from the lab in Olympia. Her voice crackled through his radio, sharp with excitement. "Got something on the GPS pollen and peat isotopes, unique markers. You're looking at a specific bog, maybe 2 square miles, north of your position." Sam jotted coordinates on Marcus Voss's map, the paper already crowded with annotations: sinkhole risk, sundew patch. Lisa continued, "The pollen's heavy with Drosera rotundifolia, sundews. Rare for most bogs, but this one's lousy with them. There's also a chemical trace, some kind of resin, on the device's casing." Sam glanced at Sammy, who whined softly, his ears perked. "Resin?" Sam asked. "Like from sundews?" Lisa hummed. "Exactly. It's sticky, clings to everything. Your dog probably smelled it before we did." Sam nodded, scratching Sammy's head. "Good boy. You're ahead of the game." Lisa promised a full report by evening, but Sam was already moving, Marcus at his side, their boots squelching through the peat. The bog was a maze of unstable ground and hidden streams, but Marcus's maps were a lifeline, guiding them toward the coordinates Lisa had pinpointed. The science was Sam's edge, a way to pry open the bog's secrets. Pollen analysis, Lisa had explained, was like reading the bog's diary. Each plant left a unique grain, microscopic but distinct, preserved in the peat's anaerobic embrace. Sundews, with their sticky, carnivorous tendrils, were especially telling, their pollen rare outside specific wetland patches. Peat isotopes, chemical signatures from water and soil, narrowed the location further, tying the GPS to a bog area unmapped by standard surveys. "It's like a fingerprint," Lisa had said, her voice crackling over the phone. "This bog's got its own DNA." Sam trusted the science, but he trusted Sammy more. The spaniel's training went beyond cadaver detection. He could pick up chemical traces and rare plants, his nose a living lab. At the channel, Sammy had caught the sundew resin's sharp, floral scent, a clue no machine could match. Now, as they trekked north, Sammy led the way, his tail wagging furiously, his nose low to the ground. The bog fought them at every step, peat sucked at their boots, fog cut visibility to a dozen feet, and once, a beaver's splash startled Marcus, his hand gripping his map like a talisman. They reached the coordinates by noon, a dense wetland where cedars loomed like sentinels, their branches draped in moss. Sundews carpeted the ground, their red-tipped tendrils glistening in the weak light. Sammy froze, his growl low, his nose pointing to a patch of disturbed peat. Sam knelt, his flashlight catching a faint irregularity, moss pressed flat, as if something heavy had rested there. "Marcus, look at this," Sam called. Marcus crouched beside him, his eyes tracing the ground. "Could be a camp. Poachers hide platforms here, wood or tarp, covered with peat to blend in." His voice tightened. Elena was tracking poachers. She wrote about it. Sam radioed for backup, requesting a LiDAR-equipped drone from the state police. LiDAR, light detection and ranging, used lasers to map terrain, piercing fog and foliage to reveal what the eye couldn't. By afternoon, a tech named Raj arrived, his drone humming as it lifted off. The machine swept the bog, its lasers painting a 3D model on Raj's tablet. Sam watched the screen, his heart racing as a shape emerged, a rectangular anomaly, hidden under the canopy, too regular to be natural. "That's no rock," Raj said, zooming in. "Looks like a platform, maybe 10 by 10 feet, buried under moss and branches." Sam marked the spot on Marcus's map, a half-mile west. The bog's terrain was treacherous, with sinkholes and streams waiting to swallow the careless. Sammy led the way, his instincts sharper than any GPS. He darted around a sinkhole Sam hadn't seen, his bark sharp, pulling Sam back from a misstep. "Thanks, buddy," Sam murmured, his hand brushing Sammy's ears. Marcus followed, his maps guiding them past a hidden channel, its water black as ink. The air grew thicker, the scent of peat and sundews overwhelming, and Sam felt the bog watching, its silence a challenge. They reached the anomaly by dusk, the fog so dense Sam could barely see Marcus 5 feet away. Sammy growled, his nose pointed at a mound of moss and branches. Sam brushed it aside, revealing weathered wood, a platform, just as Raj's LiDAR had shown. It was crude but deliberate, designed to blend into the bog. Sammy pawed at the edge, his nose twitching, catching that same resin scent. Sam dug carefully, his gloved hands unearthing a small metal tin, rusted but intact. Inside was a pressed sundew flower, its red tips faded but unmistakable. A chill ran through him. "Marcus," he said, holding up the tin. "This hers?" Marcus's face paled as he took it, his fingers trembling. "She pressed flowers like this. Kept them in her journal." He opened the tin fully, revealing a silver locket tucked beneath the flower, inscribed with DV. His breath hitched. This was Elena's. She never took it off. Sam's jaw tightened. The locket, the GPS, the resin, they were pieces of a puzzle, and the bog was finally giving them up. That night, at the ranger station, Sam and Marcus pored over the evidence. The locket lay on the table, its sundew flower a silent testament to Elena's passion. Lisa's report confirmed the pollen and isotopes tied the GPS to this bog, and the resin matched sundews from the platform's area. Sammy curled at Sam's feet, his warmth grounding him as the case took shape. "This wasn't an accident," Sam said, his voice steady. "Someone hid this platform, and Elena found it. That's why she wrote, 'Trapped.'" Marcus nodded, his eyes on the locket. "She was after poachers. Sundews are worth a fortune on the black market, collectors pay thousands for rare ones." He tapped his map, pointing to a note, "Calvin Reed, seen harvesting, July 2018. "He's our guy," Marcus said. "Elena mentioned him in her journal. Said he was selling plants," dodging her questions. Sam leaned back, his mind racing. Reed, the reclusive botanist, knew the bog's secrets. If Elena had crossed him, the locket and GPS were proof of a confrontation. Sam glanced at Sammy, who tilted his head, brown eyes soulful. "Tomorrow, we find that platform again," Sam said. "Sammy's nose and your maps, we'll get answers." Marcus managed a nod, clutching the locket. Outside, the bog whispered, its fog hiding a truth that was closer than ever. The trapped EV message burned in Sam's mind, a plea he and Sammy were determined to answer, 1 cent, 1 clue at a time. The whole rainforest bog was a labyrinth of deception, its fog and peat weaving a shroud over secrets buried for 7 years. On September 13, 2025, Detective Sam Harper stood on the hidden platform uncovered by the LiDAR drone, his boots sinking slightly into the moss-covered wood. Sammy, his cocker spaniel, paced the edge, his chestnut coat damp with mist, his nose twitching at the sharp scent of sundew resin. The air was thick with the sour tang of decay, the cedars looming like silent judges in the fog. Marcus Voss stood beside Sam, his maps clutched tightly, his eyes scanning the platform for any trace of his sister, Elena. The silver locket with DV and the pressed sundew flower, found the day before, weighed heavily in his pocket, a tangible piece of her, proof she'd been here. Sam crouched, his flashlight cutting through the gloom, revealing the platform's crude construction, weathered planks, camouflaged with peat and branches, designed to vanish into the bog. "This is no hiker's camp," he said, his voice low. "Too deliberate. Someone was hiding something." Sammy whined, pawing at a corner of the platform, his ears perked. Sam followed, brushing aside moss to reveal a rusted hinge. He pried it open, the wood groaning, and found a small compartment. Inside was a weathered field journal, its pages swollen with dampness but legible. The cover bore Elena's initials, EV, in faded ink, and a sketch of a sundew, its tendrils meticulously drawn. Marcus's breath caught as he took the journal, his fingers trembling. "This is hers," he said, flipping it open. The pages were filled with Elena's notes, observations on sundew populations, water pH levels, and a chilling entry from August 2018, poaching confirmed. Saw traps and harvested plants near West Channel. Confronted CR, he's involved. Need proof. Marcus's jaw tightened. CR. That's Calvin Reed. She was on to him. Sam nodded, his gut twisting. The locket, the GPS with trapped EV, and now the journal, Elena had stumbled into something dangerous, and this platform was the epicenter. Sam and Sammy explored the platform further, the spaniel's nose guiding them. Sammy darted to a patch of disturbed peat nearby, his tail wagging furiously, and began digging. Sam joined him, his gloved hands unearthing a canvas bag, heavy with tools, pruning shears, vials of plant samples, and a small scale, the kind used for weighing rare specimens. The bag reeked of sundew resin, the same scent Sammy had caught on the GPS poacher's kit, Sam said, holding up a vial filled with tiny, glistening sundew leaves. "These are worth thousands on the black market." Marcus's eyes darkened. Elena was fighting this. She wanted to protect the bog. The platform was a poacher's camp, hidden in the bog's heart, where rare plants like sundews were harvested for collectors worldwide. The tools and samples confirmed Elena's journal entry. She'd found evidence of illegal harvesting, likely Reed's operation. Sam radioed Lisa, the forensic tech, to process the site. "Need you here," he said. "Tools, samples, the works. And check for DNA on that journal." Lisa arrived within the hour, her portable lab clattering as she swabbed the tools and journal. "If there's DNA, I'll find it," she said. "But this place is a goldmine. The resin alone ties it to the GPS." Sammy, restless, circled the platform, his nose low. He froze at a spot where the peat was unnaturally packed, his growl low and urgent. Sam knelt, digging carefully, and uncovered a small wooden box, its lid carved with a crude sundew. Inside was a collection of pressed flowers, sundews, pitcher plants, each labeled with dates and locations. One label read, West Channel, July 2018. EV. Sam's pulse quickened. She was documenting their theft, he said, handing the box to Marcus. This was her proof. To build the suspect profile, Sam and Marcus returned to the ranger station, where Sam interviewed locals who'd known Calvin Reed. A logger named Hank described Reed as a loner, a botanist who'd once worked for the Park Service but now lived in a cabin deep in the peninsula. "He's odd," Hank said, scratching his beard. "Always rubbing a sundew leaf between his fingers, like it calms him. Knows the bog like it's his backyard." A ranger added, "Saw him near the West Channel years ago, carrying bags of plants. Said he was studying them, but he got cagey when I asked questions." Marcus's maps were key, their annotations pinpointing Reed's movements. One note read, "CR sighted, West Channel, harvesting sundews, July 2018. Another marked a hidden trail leading to the platform, labeled Poacher's Route. Sam studied the maps, his respect for Marcus growing. "You've been tracking him for years," he said. Marcus nodded, his voice tight. "Elena mentioned Reed in a call. Said he was selling plants to overseas buyers. She wanted to stop him." Sam leaned back, piecing it together. Reed, a botanist with intimate knowledge of the bog, was exploiting its rare flora for profit. Elena, with her passion for conservation, had threatened his operation. The locket, journal, and GPS suggested a confrontation, one that ended with "trapped," EV, scratched in desperation. Sam glanced at Sammy, curled at his feet, his brown eyes watchful. "We need more on Reed," Sam said. "Tomorrow, we check his cabin. Sammy's nose will tell us if he's hiding anything." That night, Sam sat by a campfire outside the station, Sammy's head resting on his knee. Marcus joined him, the locket in his hand, its sundew flower glinting in the firelight. "She taught me about these plants," Marcus said, his voice soft. "We were kids, out here with our dad. She'd point at sundews, say they were the bog's warriors, catching anything that didn't belong." He paused, his eyes distant. "I should have been with her that day." Sam understood the guilt, his own memories of Lily surfacing, her laugh, her apple left on the forest floor. "You're helping her now," Sam said. "Your maps, your work, they're why we're this close." Sammy whined, nudging Sam's hand, his warmth a quiet anchor. The bog stretched beyond the fire's glow, its fog hiding the platform's secrets. The journal and locket were pieces of Elena's story, but the trapped, EV message gnawed at Sam. Was it her final act, or something more? Reed was the key, and Sam knew he and Sammy were closing in, one scent, one clue at a time. The whole rainforest bog was a relentless adversary, its fog and peat weaving a maze that seemed to shift with every step. On September 14, 2025, Detective Sam Harper stood at the poacher's camp, the hidden platform now cordoned off with police tape, its weathered planks stark against the moss. Sammy, his cocker spaniel, nosed the ground nearby, his chestnut coat streaked with mud, his ears perked at the faint scent of sundew resin. The air was heavy with the sour tang of decay, the fog curling like a living thing, obscuring the cedars that loomed over the site. Marcus Voss stood beside Sam, his map spread on a portable table, his fingers tracing the path to Calvin Reed's cabin. The locket, journal, and GPS device, each marked with Elena Voss's initials, lay in evidence bags, their weight pressing on Sam's mind. The trapped EV message was a scream from the past, and the bog was reluctant to yield more. Lisa, the forensic tech, arrived at dawn, her portable lab clattering as she processed the camp's haul. The journal's pages, swollen but legible, detailed Elena's crusade against poaching, with entries like, August 3, 2018, confronted CR near West Channel. He's harvesting sundews, selling to collectors. Threatened to report him. The locket's silver surface held a partial print, and Lisa's DNA swab confirmed it was Elena's, with a second, unidentified trace, possibly Reed's. The tools and plant samples, coated in sundew resin, tied the camp to the GPS's chemical signature. This is solid, Lisa said, her eyes bright. The resin and pollen matched the bog's west quadrant. Whoever ran this operation was here when Elena disappeared. Sam nodded, his blue eyes scanning the platform. Reed's our guy. But we need more to pin him. Sammy whined, pawing at a corner of the platform, his nose twitching. Sam knelt, following Sammy's lead, and found a hidden trapdoor, its hinges rusted but intact. He pried it open, revealing a shallow compartment with more vials of sundew leaves, a ledger of sales to overseas buyers, and a knife with a worn handle. The blade's edge was nicked, as if used to scratch something hard, like the GPS's casing. Sam bagged it, his pulse quickening. Good boy, Sammy, he murmured, scratching the spaniel's ears. Sammy's tail wagged furiously, his instincts once again driving the case forward. The investigation intensified, but the bog fought back. A flash flood hit that afternoon, the peat swelling with water, erasing tracks and threatening to swallow the camp. Sam and Marcus worked fast, salvaging what they could, while Sammy darted around sinkholes, his barks guiding them to safer ground. The fog thickened, cutting visibility to a few feet, and Sam felt the wilderness closing in, its silence a taunt. Marcus's maps were their lifeline, his annotations, hidden stream, avoid, sundew cluster, stable ground, steering them through the chaos. Elena knew this place, Marcus said, his voice tight. She'd have navigated this flood. She didn't drown. Back at the ranger station, Sam pored over the ledger, its pages listing buyers in Asia and Europe, with sums in the thousands for rare sundews. The knife's handle was being tested for DNA, and Lisa was cross-referencing the ledger's codes with known black market networks. Sam's mind churned, piecing together Elena's final days. Her journal painted a picture of a woman driven by passion, her notes filled with sketches of sundews and warnings about poaching. One entry read, August 7, 2018, Reed's camp is hidden, but I found it. He's dangerous. I'm reporting this tomorrow. Sam's jaw tightened. Tomorrow never came. Marcus shared a memory, his voice soft as he clutched Elena's locket. She dragged me to the bog one summer, years ago. Showed me a sundew, said it was a warrior, trapping anything that threatened the bog. She was like that, fierce, protective. He paused, his eyes distant. She called me that night, said she'd found proof of poaching. I told her to wait, to be careful. I should have driven out here. Sam understood the guilt, his own memories of Lily surfacing, her laugh, her apple left on the forest floor. You're giving her justice now, Sam said. That's what matters. Sam's doubts about his own past crept in, mirroring Marcus's. Lily's case, unsolved for 20 years, was a shadow over every investigation. Had she, too, stumbled into something dangerous? The bog's refusal to yield Elena's body echoed the forest's silence about Lily. Sam pushed the thought aside, focusing on the evidence. The trapdoor's contents, vials, ledger, knife, pointed to Reed, but the trapped, EV message gnawed at him. Why scratch it? Was it Elena's final act, or a clue to something more? He glanced at Sammy, curled at his feet, his brown eyes watchful. What are we missing, buddy? Sammy tilted his head, as if the answer lay in the bog's depths. Sam and Marcus planned their next move, confront Reed at his cabin, a mile from the West Channel. Marcus's maps marked a trail to it, labeled CR route, evasive. Reed was cunning, a botanist who knew the bog's every secret, his isolation a shield. Sam radioed for backup, but the bog's terrain made it a slow trek. Reed could vanish if spooked. We go at dawn, Sam said. Sammy's nose will tell us if he's hiding anything. Marcus nodded, his hand on the locket. For Elena, he said, his voice steady but heavy. That night, Sam sat in his tent, the bog's silence pressing against the canvas. Sammy lay beside him, his warmth a quiet anchor. Sam opened Elena's journal, reading her final entry. The bog keeps what it takes, but I'll make it speak. He thought of Lily, her case a wound that never closed. The trapped, EV message was a puzzle piece that didn't fit, Elena's desperate plea, or a hint of another player. Sam scratched Sammy's ears, his resolve hardening. We're close, buddy, he said. Let's find her truth. Outside, the fog curled, the bog waiting, its secrets buried but not silent. The Hoh rainforest bog was a predator, its fog and peat closing in like jaws around Detective Sam Harper and his cocker spaniel, Sammy. On September 15, 2025, dawn broke gray and heavy, the air thick with the sour tang of decay. Sam stood at the edge of a hidden trail, Marcus Voss's map in hand, its annotations, CR route, evasive, sinkhole, north, guiding them toward Calvin Reed's cabin. Sammy paced beside him, his chestnut coat damp, his brown eyes sharp as he sniffed the air, catching traces of sundew resin and something sharper, like fear. Marcus stood nearby, his face taut, Elena's locket clutched in his fist. The bog felt alive, its mist curling like a warning, but Sam was done waiting. Today, they'd face Reed. The trail to the cabin was a gauntlet of unstable peat and hidden streams, Marcus's map the only thing keeping them from disaster. Sammy led, his nose low, dodging a sinkhole that nearly swallowed Sam's boot. Good boy, Sam murmured, his heart racing. The evidence was ironclad, Elena's journal, detailing her confrontation with Reed, the locket, bearing her DNA and a second, unidentified trace, the poacher's camp, with its tools and ledger tying Reed to illegal sundew harvesting. The GPS device's trapped, EV message was the final piece, a desperate cry pointing to foul play. Sam's gut told him Reed was the key, but the bog's silence made him wary, secrets here came with traps. They reached the cabin by mid-morning, a weathered shack nestled in a clearing, its walls moss-stained, its windows dark. The air reeked of peat and something chemical, plant preservatives, Sam guessed. Sammy growled, his ears perked, his nose fixed on a shed beside the cabin. Sam signaled Marcus to stay back, his hand on his holster. Calvin Reed, he called, his voice cutting through the fog. Police. Come out. The door creaked open, and Reed appeared, a wiry man in his 50s, his eyes narrow, his fingers rubbing a sundew leaf like a tick. What's this about? He asked, his voice calm but edged. Sam held up an evidence bag with the locket. Recognize this? Belonged to Elena Voss. Found it in your camp, along with her journal and tools for poaching sundews. Reed's face didn't change, but his fingers tightened on the leaf. Don't know what you're talking about, he said. Sam stepped closer, Sammy at his side, the spaniel's growl deepening. We've got DNA, pollen, isotopes, all tying you to the West Channel where Elena disappeared. She confronted you, didn't she? About your black market operation? Reed's eyes flicked to the shed, a tell Sam didn't miss. Sammy bolted toward the shed, barking sharply, his nose locked on a wooden panel in the ground. Sam followed, prying it open to reveal a trapdoor, its hinges slick with moss. Inside was a cache of sundew samples, vials of resin, and a bloodied rag, its stain dark and old. Sammy's tail wagged furiously, his instincts pinpointing danger. Sam turned to Reed, his voice hard. "This ends now. Talk." Reed's shoulders sagged, his defiance crumbling. "All right," he said, his voice hollow. "It was an accident. She wasn't supposed to die." Reed's confession came in a rush, his words spilling like the bog's hidden streams. In August 2018, Elena had found his camp, caught him harvesting sundews for a buyer in Singapore. "She was furious," he said, staring at the ground. "Said she'd report me, ruin everything. I panicked. I just wanted her to stop." He'd grabbed her, a struggle breaking out. Elena fought back, scratching, trapped, EV, on her GPS as she tried to escape. Reed struck her with a shovel, a desperate blow to the head, and she collapsed. "I didn't mean to kill her," he said, his voice breaking. "I buried her in the bog, where the peat would hide her. Thought it'd look like an accident." Sam's jaw clenched, Marcus's face a mask of pain beside him. "Where is she?" Sam demanded. Reed pointed to a spot on Marcus's map, a deep bog pit a quarter-mile from the camp. "There," he said. "Under the peat." Sam radioed for a recovery team, his eyes never leaving Reed. Sammy whined, nudging Sam's leg, sensing the tension. "Why the message?" Sam asked. "Why trapped?" Reed shook his head, confused. "I didn't see her write it. She must have done it before it happened." The answer felt incomplete, the trapped, EV message a lingering shadow. Sammy's instincts saved them from disaster. As Reed stepped back, his foot brushed a hidden tripwire, rigged to a crude trap, sharpened stakes buried in the peat. Sammy barked, lunging to push Sam clear, his small body a shield. The stakes snapped up, missing Sam by inches. Reed froze, his face pale. "I set those for bears," he stammered, but Sam didn't buy it. He cuffed Reed, his hands steady despite his racing heart. "Good boy, Sammy," he said, scratching the spaniel's ears. Marcus stared at Reed, his voice low. "You took her from me." Reed looked away, his fingers still clutching the sundew leaf. The recovery team arrived by afternoon, their equipment clattering as they probed the bog pit Reed had marked. Sam and Marcus watched, Sammy curled at Sam's feet, his warmth a quiet anchor. The team worked carefully, the peat reluctant to yield its prize. Hours later, they found her, Elena's remains, preserved by the bog's anaerobic embrace, her red jacket faded but unmistakable. Marcus sank to his knees, tears mixing with the drizzle, the locket in his hand. Sam placed a hand on his shoulder, his own grief for Lily surfacing, a wound that never healed. Reed was taken into custody, charged with murder and illegal trafficking. The evidence, DNA on the locket, pollen from the camp, the ledger, was airtight. But the trapped, EV message gnawed at Sam. Reed's confusion seemed genuine. Had Elena written it in her final moments, or was there another player in the bog? The question hung unanswered, a thread of mystery the bog refused to unravel. That night, Sam sat in the ranger station, Sammy's head on his knee. Marcus held Elena's journal, reading her final entry, "The bog keeps what it takes, but I'll make it speak." He looked at Sam, his voice steady. "You did that for her." "Thank you." Sam nodded, his eyes on Sammy. "We both did." The bog stretched beyond the window, its fog hiding one last secret, the truth behind trapped EV. Sam knew he'd chase it, just as he chased Lily's ghost, with Sammy at his side. The Hoh rainforest bog exhaled its final secrets under a bruised September sky, its fog curling through the cedars like a reluctant ghost. On September 16, 2025, Detective Sam Harper stood at the edge of the pit where Elena Voss's remains had been recovered, the peat still clinging to the recovery team's tools. Sammy, his cocker spaniel, sat at his feet, his chestnut coat damp with drizzle, his brown eyes watchful as the bog's silence pressed in. Marcus Voss stood nearby, clutching Elena's locket, its silver surface glinting with the pressed sundew flower inside. The air was heavy with the sour tang of decay, but for the first time in 7 years, it carried a hint of closure. Calvin Reed's confession had cracked the case, but the trapped EV message on the GPS device lingered, a shadow the bog refused to dispel. The recovery team had worked through the night, their floodlights cutting through the mist. Elena's remains, preserved by the bog's anaerobic grip, were carefully excavated, her red jacket a faded beacon in the peat. The forensic team confirmed her identity through dental records and DNA from the locket, tying her to the journal and GPS found earlier. Marcus had watched in silence, his face a map of grief and relief, as the team placed her remains in a sealed bag. He clutched the locket, its EV inscription a mirror to the GPS's desperate message. "She's coming home," he whispered, his voice breaking. Sam nodded, his hand resting on Sammy's head, feeling the weight of his own unresolved loss. Lily, his sister, still a ghost in a distant forest. Back at the ranger station, the case was closing. Reed's confession, his panicked killing of Elena after she threatened to expose his poaching, held up under scrutiny. The ledger from the trapdoor listed buyers in Singapore, London, and Tokyo, each paying thousands for rare sundews. The knife, its nicked blade matching the scratches on the GPS, bore traces of Elena's blood, sealing Reed's fate. He was charged with first-degree murder and illegal trafficking, his trial set for spring. The judge's gavel would fall like a stone, sentencing him to life without parole. Sam watched as Reed was led away, his fingers still rubbing a sundew leaf, his eyes distant, as if the bog had claimed him too. Marcus sat with Sam, the locket now a permanent fixture in his hand. He opened it, the pressed sundew flower catching the station's fluorescent light. "She loved these plants," he said, his voice soft. "When we were kids, she'd drag me out here, show me how sundews caught flies, said they were the bog's protectors." He paused, his eyes meeting Sam's. "She was like that, always fighting for this place." Sam understood, his mind flashing to Lily, her laughter echoing in a forest that never gave her back. "She's still fighting," Sam said. "Her work, your maps, they stopped Reed. That's her legacy." Marcus nodded, his fingers closing around the locket. He'd decided to plant a patch of sundews near the ranger station, a living memorial to Elena's passion. "She'd like that," he said, a faint smile breaking through. Sam handed him Elena's journal, its pages swollen but intact, her sketches and notes a testament to her life. "Keep this," Sam said. "It's hers, and yours." Marcus took it, his gratitude unspoken but clear. The trapped EV message remained a riddle. Reed's confusion about it seemed genuine. He denied seeing Elena scratch it, insisting she was unconscious after his blow. Sam turned the GPS over in his hands, its mossy casing now clean, the letters stark under the evidence room's light. Had Elena written it in her final moments, a desperate act as she fought for air? Or was there another hand involved, someone Reed hadn't named? The bog offered no answers, its fog a curtain over the truth. Sam shared his theories with Marcus. Could be she wrote it as he chased her, or someone else was there, watching. Marcus frowned, his maps no help now. "She was alone with him," he said. "But it feels unfinished." The ambiguity gnawed at Sam, a mirror to Lily's case. He'd chased her ghost for 20 years, each cold case a chance to rewrite her ending, but the bog's silence was too familiar. He filed the question away, knowing some mysteries defied resolution. It added a raw edge to the case, a reminder that even closure came with loose threads. Elena's remains gave Marcus peace, but the trapped EV message was a whisper of doubt, a piece of the bog's heart it wouldn't surrender. That night, Sam and Sammy sat by a campfire on the bog's edge, the flames pushing back the fog. The cedars stood like sentinels, their moss-draped branches swaying in the breeze. Sammy rested his head on Sam's knee, his warmth a quiet anchor, his tail thumping softly. Sam scratched his ears, his voice low. "We did good, buddy. Found her for Marcus." Sammy whined, nudging closer, as if sensing the weight of Sam's thoughts. The fire crackled, its light catching the peat's glint, and Sam's mind drifted to Lily. Her case was still a file on his desk, her apple on the forest floor a memory that never faded. Elena's case had closure, but Lily's lingered, a wound the bog's answers couldn't heal. Sam leaned back, the stars hidden by fog, and thought of Elena's journal. "The bog keeps what it takes, but I'll make it speak." She'd spoken, through her locket, her notes, her fight. Sammy had heard her, his nose finding the resin, the trapdoor, the truth. Sam's resolve hardened, he'd keep searching for Lily, for others, with Sammy at his side. The bog stretched beyond the fire's glow, its secrets not fully spent. The trapped EV message was a question mark, but Sam and Sammy would face others, their bond a promise to chase the next whisper, wherever it led.